Threadheads, it's Kris from Socially Awkward Stitching Society, where we make machine embroidery designs for your geeky, gothy, snarky little heart. Today I'm going to do an upcycle on this jacket that I found at a local thrift shop. I am loving the color, loving the fit, loving the details. I'm loving pretty much everything about it except for the sleeves, which are made out of this weird vinyl-y type fabric-y thing that I think they threw it in a dryer and melted it because it looks like it was like stuck together and it's all puckered. And then the cuffs are all ratty-tatty. So the sleeves are going to have to go, but it's got this wonderful little spot right here for embroidery. So I'm going to show you the materials and techniques I'm going to use to upcycle this into an awesome vest. So let's get started. Okay, so the very first thing we're going to do is take a closer look at this jacket. I have put it on and got in front of the mirror with a small ruler to try to figure out where I want it to land on this jacket. I probably would have tried to put it up a little higher if I hadn't done that, but I realized I have to watch out for where this collar is going to fall when it's on me. As well as up and down, where do I want the design? I do not want the middle of a sunflower right over my boob. So I'm going to spread this out. I'm not going to take the sleeves off yet, even though it would make some of this easier, because depending on where I position this patch, I might need this for my hoop to grab onto. And so let's see here. I'm going to try to make it parallel to the zipper, so that way it should be fairly straight when it is, let's see what this whole measurement is. 7 inches, okay. That should be fairly straight once it's positioned. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to draw a line down the middle here. I'm just using a chalk pencil that I used to use for quilting. And then I'm going to mark this. So this design is a little less than 4 inches, maybe like 3.5. But I want it pretty much as high, as much toward this as I can get it to keep it higher up on my chest. So let's see. So that looks pretty good. So that's 4 inches, that's 3.5 once we take off the stitching around the outside of this design. So I'm going to mark both of these. That's 3.5, that's 4 inches from this mark right here. Now I'm going to go put this back on and make sure that I like that positioning before I mark the rest of it out and get this hooped up. I'm glad I tried this on because I actually have room to come down a little bit without it being in an unflattering position. And so I looked at the height of the design and it's about 3.5 inches. So coming up from my lowest point that I had marked as acceptable here, I'm going to come up here and this is going to be my top. It's about 3 wide, so if I put this on 1.5, this is 3.5. Yep, that's about right. So this guy is, I'm going to use that vertical line where I lined up with the zipper to make sure that my horizontal lines are on point. Now, keep in mind on a jacket like this, it's going to be bending and flexing with your body. And so if it's not perfectly positioned, it is not the end of the world. I'm going to go ahead and mark a middle point, which will be half of the height. And that'll help me orient it in the hoop. So we've got our jacket marked. So the next thing we want to do is we want to look at the garment, how it's constructed, and whether we're going to have any obstacles to where we want to put our design. So this design is about like that. I'm going to flip it over. The only thing we really have to worry about over here is the seam to the sleeves, which is way out of our way. And we need to worry a little bit about this facing. But it is far enough out of our way that I think we'll be able to hoop just fine. So we've got it marked and ready to hoop, but we need to have a little chat about materials. Rule of thumb for stabilizer is if you wear it, don't tear it. So if you're going to wear something that you're making, do not use tearaway, use a cutaway. This is a fairly heavy cutaway. It's probably, it doesn't say on the roll, but I think it's probably a 2.5 to 3 ounce cutaway, and that's what I like to use on heavier garments like this. Now, when you're hooping something that is kind of awkward, it's not just a flat piece of fabric, but it's a garment with seams and detail and stuff on it, you will find this easier if you first affix your stabilizer to the back of your garment. So I'm going to, in this case, use, this is KK2000, Sulky makes it. It's a little pricey, but a little goes a long way. So I like it better than some of the other spray adhesives, primarily because it has a very narrow spray pattern, so I don't have to worry about this being all over the damn studio if I just need a little spritz to get something hooped. I'm gonna undo this little tack here. All this is, you probably can't see it unless I zoom in, but it's a little place where the facing is tacked to this pocket so that, or what passes for a pocket, that's not a real pocket. So I've nicked this stitch that was here. I'm going to now kind of flip this inside out here, and I'm going to have to use something to hold this out of the way, but first let me just get situated in here. So I'm going to leave the sleeves in place for a little bit because I have a feeling that when I hoop this, I'm going to need that fabric to hold things in place. So what I like to do is I lay down some stabilizer that I don't care about, and I put it down on the floor to catch the overspray. So I use like a wide stabilizer, and I'm going to spray my stabilizer, and now I'm going to bring it back up, and I'm going to smooth it in place where I'm going to, roughly where I'm going to do the design. Now, it just has to cover the whole area that's going to be hooped. Okay, I'm just going to rub that in. I may have to lift it up and smooth out some wrinkles here and there. Now, this does not have to stick super tight. It just needs to hold on long enough to get smoothly put in the hoop, along with the jacket itself. Now, if you're not going to hoop this, if you're working with a material that's too stiff or too heavy to hoop well, and you don't have a handy dandy mighty hoop like I have, and you're going to float it, you are going to hoop your stabilizer. You're going to use you can use a similar spray to secure your garment to the stabilizer that's already in your hoop. It does make a mess of your hoops, but they can be cleaned up with Goo Gone or some other kind of a sticky solvent remover. And if you do that, your best success is going to come if you use a basting box. Basting boxes are available in various software programs. I use Embroidery and Essentials has a basting box, and maybe for one of my next videos I'll show you how that works. There are other ways you can add them. I believe some machines you can even just add it straight from your machine. If you know of other software besides Embroidery that has a basting box, please drop it down in the comments so that folks will have some choices. Now comes the fun part. I've got a little room in this hoop. This is the whole design is 4x4. If I don't get it perfectly hooped, I'm going to be able to move my design around in the hoop a little bit in order to make it fit. All right, let's see how I do here. That's crooked. Okay. But I do want to get rid of any major wrinkles that I've got in here. So I'm just going to tug it a little from the sides. So you want your stabilizer not to have any crinkles or wrinkles. So now you want to make sure that your facing is out of the way. This is as far out of the way as I can get it. So hopefully that will be far enough. I think from our examination of the garment, I think it will be. So I printed out the color change sheet. This is always going to be in your zip file of your SAS designs when you download them. And we're going to skip, let's look at what we're going to skip first. So some of these stops are color changes, some are stops to allow you to add material when you make this as a patch. So we could, if we wanted to, instead of making a patch on stabilizer, like I showed you in a previous video, we could sew our patch right on this jacket, and it would be sewn through the jacket, and it would save you a step. But I don't really want the patch look on this jacket. I want just the embroidery design. So I'm going to, the first stop is a position stitch that shows you where to put your material if you're making a patch. The second stop tacks it down, and the third adds that faux marrow edge. I don't want any of these, so I'm going to skip these, okay? And I'm going to skip forward to stop 4 and run all the way to 13, and these are the actual design stitches that I want. So I'm looking at the colors that are on the color change sheet that I used for the patch design. And what I'm noticing is that there's probably a few of these that aren't going to work well on this color background. So let's talk a little bit about color choices. So what we need to worry about, I'm going to turn this over. What we need to worry about are any colors that are touching this fabric. We want to make sure that there's a difference in value between the color of the fabric and the thread. Value is how light or dark something is. You can sometimes use hue to get close to the value of something and still have it show. But for example, looking at these greens, I'm a little concerned that those leaves are just going to disappear. So I'm going to want to pick some new colors for this. Now this brown too looks like it could kind of drift into the background. I mean, these yellows and this blue and this sort of rusty orange, these are going to pop. I'm not worried about those, but this brown could be a problem. However, I'm not doing the marrow edge, which is one place that we put the brown, and this center piece here is not right next to the green fabric. It's in the middle of all this yellow, so it should not be a problem. But the greens, probably want to replace them. I'm going to show you some quilters tricks for assessing the value and seeing where you're going to have a problem where you don't have enough contrast in your colors. So one thing you can do is to look at your colors through a peephole that would normally go in a door. It makes them look really, really far away, and then you see which ones disappear because they're too close to the background color. So if I look at this, I'm seeing, yes, indeed, my browns and my greens are going to be my problems with this. Okay, so another tool that you can get is called a ruby beholder. And I don't know how well this is going to work on camera, but if you place this over, see how it kind of knocks the color out, and man, we cannot even see those greens. I can see them a little bit in real life, but on camera particularly. And actually, that blue might be an issue. I think it's bright enough and different enough color that it'll be okay, because so this means the value is very similar, but I think we'll have enough variation in hue that that'll be okay. All right, here's another way to check for contrast. So if you don't want to use the peephole, you don't want to use the ruby beholder, you already have a method right in your purse or pocket, and that's your smartphone. So I'm going to take a picture with my phone. Okay, and I want everybody in the shot, so I'm going to kind of come up here and take a picture. This is on an Android, it's on an LG phone. It's going to be in different places depending on your phone and your camera software. But here I go to edit, and I will use filters for this. So there's filters. Okay, that's with no filter. So if I go over here, I turn it black and white, I can get an idea of which colors are going to pop and which aren't. This is just showing me value in black and white, so it takes color out of the equation so it doesn't trick my eye. So again, that blue is a little sus, right? I'm gonna go with it because I really think the hue will pull it off. But the greens, that's not gonna work, okay? And like I said, the brown's only gonna work because it's not right on this fabric. If the brown was on the outside, I'd have to change it out. So let's see if we can find some greens that work better. So I've brought out a whole bunch of greens. Yeah, let's throw that one in there and see. And including some very soft greens, because this is a really dark green on the patch, but and I did that to contrast with the yellows, but there's no law that says we have to use that dark, uber dark green on there. So let me take my phone. Okay, so I'm gonna take my picture of my colors on my background, and then I'm gonna bring it up and go to Edit, Filters, and find my black and white filter. There we go. Okay, so this is looking at just value, and then if we want the most value contrast, we would use these, and surprisingly this one, because I look at that on there and think that's going to blend right in, but actually you can see it's a lighter value than the jacket. So I'm looking at these, trying to decide what I want to do here. Looking at the role that hue is playing and how well they contrast, I'm thinking that this one might be okay. It's different enough that it should pop. And then I really want my veins and my leaves to stand out. So even though this one played out at a similar value, again, I think that the factoring in the hue, it will, when I factor in the hue, that it will still show up well on this background. And there may be times too where you really don't care if something falls away into the background, and it's okay. So the only other thing I want to be sure of is that my petals are enough different in value. And because we have that outlining the petals, I think that helps create a break line where that will let the leaves recede into the background like they're supposed to. So we're going to use these two greens, and we'll see if I get it right. The rest of the colors are going to stay the same as they were. So now I'm going to write down the colors that I'm changing out so I don't get confused. Everything's going to stay the same except for the two greens. And so for the very dark green background, I'm going to sub in this color, which is 5613. So I'm going to write 5613 everywhere I see this deep green. Okay, there's only one stop that has that. And then I'm going to use 5830 for the veins. So I'm going to see if I've got that color anywhere else. And no, I don't. It's just in these first two. So I'm going to go stitch this now. I'm going to skip my first 3 stops and then stitch out the rest of them, and then I'll come back. I'm going to show you the next steps I'm going to do to make this funky old jacket into a really cool vest. All right, it's all done stitching. And I think my colors worked well with one exception, which is I should have remembered that these letters go over the leaves, and I needed either a darker, brighter blue than this, or I needed to pick a different leaf color. So when you do yours, pay attention to the color of your lettering versus your leaves. All right, I'm going to pop this out of the hoop. So I used a black bobbin thread just so that this would look a little nicer on the inside. And you can see that the adhesive really was temporary, right? I'm gonna come in here and just trim this stabilizer back. And I'm gonna keep my hand. So this is a little different than the trimming that we do on some of our in the hoop projects. I do not want to cut this jacket after all this effort. So I'm going to keep my hand under there so that I'm going to cut myself before I cut the jacket. I've got my decently sharp applique scissors. Put that under the camera a little better for you. And no, this doesn't need to look pretty because no one's going to see it. It's on the inside of your jacket. I'll have to do a line jacket sometime and show you how to get the lining out of the way. That's where my years as a basically a seamstress for a doctor's wife who had me alter all her clothes, and she had some very, very nice things. That comes in handy sometimes when it comes to dealing with ready-made garments and trying to figure out how to put embroidery on them. Okay, so there we go. In looking at these sleeves, what I discovered was, okay, these are serged. These have a serged edge, and then they're lock stitched on. So what I'm going to do, because I'm lazy as fuck when it comes to the regular sewing machine. So I've turned the sleeve inside out, and I'm only going to cut down through the lining and the weird vinyl-y stuff that's the sleeves. I do not want to cut this. Interesting. It's like a knit back nylon kind of stuff. Okay, please tell me I didn't. Oh, this is pretty easy to cut, actually. But now that I've got this started, it works better this way. I have taken the sleeves off my vest, and now I want to stitch them. And so I took a lighter and I kind of ran just around the edges to catch any loose threads on this nylon lining that's still attached. And then I folded it over twice. I noticed that throughout the garment it's got a lot of about 1/4 inch stitching, and this will come out just about right if I fold it, leave it folded the way it is, and then fold it over once more so that's hidden toward the inside of the garment. So I'm going to press these over and run just shy of the edge here with a top stitch to finish off the sleeves. So the last thing I want to show you about this is on this particular shirt, the shape of this neck or this armhole, I have a lot more fabric on the way I've got it turned, the inside, than I do on the outside. So I'm going to put this part with all the excess fabric down. Then the feed dogs will kind of grab that, the sewing machine, and slowly ease that in. You can kind of guide it into your hem there without having puckers. So whenever you are trying to ease in extra fabric on the outside of a hem, put the outside of the hem down on the feed dogs, let them do your work. Okay, I have stitched the sleeves. There's just one more thing we need to do on this vest before it is fully upcycled, and that is to replace a broken zipper stop, or zipper head. The little ring that holds the tab on has broken off. I was lucky that this jacket had zippers at the cuffs, and since I cut the sleeves off, they are spare parts. So these are the same size zipper as in the front, and so I can just scavenge this zipper head off and replace the broken one. I've got a few tools here because I'm not sure how what's going to be the best for getting this off. This just has a little zipper stop at the top. In fact, I probably can do it with my fingernails, maybe. Except my nails are shit, so maybe not. Okay, it's going to need a little something. Let's try, I don't know if I'm going to need pliers or what. I need to basically bend this apart and then put it back on after I move the zipper. Okay, so it turned out that the little bitty screwdriver was the weapon of choice for this job. So I'm going to pull this zipper head off the top here and kind of work it off of the, hello. I'm going to just kind of work this off. There, got it. Okay, now I got to try to get this one on over that little hump of the zipper there. If I was doing this the right way, I would unstitch the whole collar. I'm really not wanting to mess with that, so I'm going to do it the janky way. It should, there we go, pop right on. All right, now before I make sure I've got it lined up, Now, before I put that stop back on, I'm going to just make sure that my guess that these are the same zipper is correct. Ha ha! Success. All right. So now I need to keep the zipper head from coming off. So I'm going to put the stop back on. I used the screwdrivers and a little bit of finagling to get the zipper stop open enough that I can put it back over the zipper tape here. The zipper tape has seen better days, but you know, it's a thrift store jacket, so what do you expect? Okay, so I've just slid that back on there, and now my pliers come in handy. Maybe, yeah. It seems pretty secure. Might have been more secure than it was when I started. All right. So here's the finished Upcycle. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button for more. And if there's something you'd like to see me upcycle, drop a note to me in the comments. I'm always looking for great ideas. And no, I'm afraid I can't upcycle your significant other. See you next time.